Hello, good morning and welcome to this brand new edition of the newspaper show right here on ET Now. I'm Cheryl D'Souza and I'll take you through the top headlines and stories that's there on the Economic Times as well as the Times of India for you. But first up, let's get going with the top 10 headlines that's there on the Economic Times this morning. And first up, it is Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his Mann Ki Baat on Sunday said that those who cast evil eye got a befitting reply, and that is the top headline on the Economic Times this morning. Apart from that, you have a story that's saying the scrutiny of Chinese imports from ASEAN as well. This is all a source-based story. Moving on, AM Naik says that government must back local industry. You have FMCG companies in faster lane in the rural markets. Income Tax Department gives relief under the new tax regime. You have drug prices that may rise on rising curbs for Chinese imports. Auto industry gears up for its worst quarter ever. Then you have ICMR that says that the antibody tests are not proof of immunity. The COVID-19 crisis, Maharashtra Chief Minister to meet officials today to decide on way forward for the state. Lastly, global COVID-19 cases hit a 10 million mark. So those are the top 10 headlines that's there on the Economic Times for you. But let's shift focus and let's see what are the top market headlines that's there on the Economic Times this morning. And first up, it is LIC that they've put 64,000 crore rupees into markets despite COVID-19. Nifty may see a selling pressure, gap down open likely for the markets this morning. IIFL Finance in talks to sell wholesale loan book. You have SEBI that acts against Monnet on pre-IBC violations. And Cooperative Banks, the update there is the states may oppose more power for RBI. Let's shift focus now to the corporate headlines that's there on the Economic Times this morning. And $2 billion war chest to help Piramal tide over COVID-19. Sources are saying that SP Hinduja and daughters are the owners of Hinduja Bank. You have Realtors GST burden that is likely to rise. Realty deal volumes have plunged 94% in Jan to May. And lastly, last date for Air India bids pushed to August 31st. Alright, then those are the top headlines that's there on the market front, the corporate front, and overall what's the big stories making headlines on the Economic Times. But let's shift focus to some sort of a good news that's coming in, and it's on the page 1 of Economic Times, and this is the story that I'm talking about. The FMCG companies in faster lane in the rural markets. Higher farm income, minimum retail disruption during lockdown, and migrant workers returning home drives sales for the FMCG companies. But to talk more on this and what's there on the story, I'm joined by my colleague Winnie. Good morning, Winnie. Take us through this good story that's there on Economic Times this morning.
Rural markets are on a roll as FMCG companies suggest that consumption in rural areas is much faster and outpacing the growth in urban areas. Now, according to Nielsen's data, it suggests that rural growth is at around 85% of its pre-COVID average sales levels, while urban is only at around 70% of its average sales levels, pre-COVID average sales levels. So this is in the month of May. So that is why clearly showing a sign that rural growth is outpacing urban growth. Now, what is leading to a positive or boost in rural growth is one, migrants are going back home. There's higher farm income also now, as well as minimal retail disruption. So that is something really positive for rural areas. Plus, the rules for restrictions in rural area during the lockdown are also much less compared to urban area. That is a very positive sign over there. Now, talking about the next 9 months, Nielsen expects that overall FMCG growth will be at around 5%, but in that they expect that rural will be 2x of the urban growth. So twice is what they're expecting rural to grow at compared to urban growth. Now there are more than half a dozen of companies like HUL, Nestle, Dabur, Parle, which are expecting rural demand to drive bulk of the growth in FMCG companies, and they expect it to rural growth to outpace urban growth. Even if you talk about Dabur's CEO, that is Mr. Mohit Malhotra, he also said that rural demand will continue to outpace urban demand, and he said that the Manrega push by the government as well as the higher MSPs is something that will also surely lead to an uptick in the demand. Now, talking about HUL, Sanjeev Mehta did say that yes, urban rural growth was in a stress even before the COVID scenario, but now as Manrega is coming into place, they also expect rural to do better than urban. So let's see how this actually pans out for the company, because even United Spirits did say that migrant labour is also moving in to rural area, and smaller towns could see higher growth is what he's expecting. So something we'll surely watch out for, and rural will outpace urban is what Nielsen's data also suggests.
All right, thank you, Vinny, for taking us through the story from the FMCG space, and some good news coming on that front. Let's move to the auto space, which is actually seeing a big hit due to COVID-19. And page 4, you have this story that is talking about the auto industry and saying auto sales may see 25 to 45% drop in Q1 alone. Heavy commercial vehicle sales could fall 50% in worst quarter for the industry. I'll talk more on the story right from the paper for you. It says the Indian automakers could report the worst demand decline in almost 3 decades in the 3 months to June, with wholesale dispatches as well as retail sales of passenger vehicles, cars and UVs contracting drastically in the quarter that coincided with the strictest norms worldwide, that is due to COVID-19. The industry could see an overall decline of 25 to 45% in Q1, with heavy commercial vehicles expected to see a degrowth of 50%, touching the sales levels of 2008. So according to the industry estimates, PV wholesale figures may shrink to 1.5 lakh units from 8.73 lakh units, and retail sales could fall to 2.5 lakh units from 7.95 lakh units recorded last year. So there you go. For auto industry, definitely it's not looking good. The sales may drop by 25 to 45% in Q1. So that is a story that is coming on the auto industry. But let me now shift focus and let me go back to page 1 of the Economic Times. Just give me a moment while I get back to that particular story that I'm going to talk about, and it is about SP Hinduja and the Hinduja brothers, what's going around on that particular front. So there you go. This is the story on page 1 of Economic Times for you. I'll read it directly off the papers. SP Hinduja and daughters, sole owners of the Swiss bank. Other 3 brothers are neither executives or nor shareholders, and they're wrongly using letter to try and take control. This is all as per sources on the Hinduja brothers dispute. It's saying that SP Hinduja and his daughters Shanu and Vinu are the whole and sole owners of Switzerland headquartered Hinduja Bank, and SP's 3 brothers, that is Gopi Chand, Prakash and Ashok, are neither executives nor shareholders of the bank. This is as per sources close to the SP Hinduja family that spoke to Economic Times, and this is all as per sources as of now. Thus, there is no need to consult them before appointing Shanu's son Karam Hinduja as the bank's CEO. This is what the sources are saying. So as of now, this is the latest coming in to that Hinduja brothers dispute that we saw the story come in last week. Sources also said that the May 2015 SP Hinduja had tried to repudiate a July 2014 agreement which has said that the brothers appoint each other as the executors, and the assets be held in any single brother's name belong to all 4. This is the claim that the 3 brothers, that the Hinduja Bank does not exclusively belong to SP Hinduja, is on the basis of this particular agreement. So this is the latest coming in on the Hinduja brothers dispute, all as per sources. Sources are saying that SP Hinduja and daughters are sole owners of Swiss Bank. This is sources that have spoken to Economic Times. Let me shift focus. That's the story that's there on the page 1 of Economic Times, and that is drug prices may rise on China curbs. The delay in clearing Chinese imports may soon lead to shortages in pharma industry and raise costs. This is a report written by an Economic Times reporter, Tina Thakur. But to talk more on that, I'm joined by my colleague Pankaj Podar. Pankaj, take us through this particular story. The drug prices may rise on back of the curbs coming in from China.
So, it's a very interesting story which has come through that as well as cost checkers, they have become one of the prices all across the space to fight against COVID-19. So that's our stuck at the port, and it's coming in very soon. That's what
Right, Pankaj, I think we've got you on a very terrible phone line. I believe, Pankaj, we've got you on a terrible phone line this morning, but the story that Pankaj was referring to is that the drug prices may see a rise on China import curbs. A delay in clearing import consignments from China at India ports and airports may soon hit the pharmaceutical sector, creating a shortage and increasing the cost. The medical equipment such as infrared thermometers and pulse oximeters needed in the fight against COVID-19, among others, are stuck at the ports and may result in shortage soon. This is an Economic Times story that is talking about how the drug prices may rise due to the rise in China curbs. Let's move on now. Let's talk about another story that is there on the front page of Economic Times, and this is the story that I'm talking about. Here you go. This is the story that I'm talking about. The India may step up scrutiny of imports from Chinese companies in ASEAN nations as well. Information on China using shell firms in such nations to relabel exports good under FTA. So this is another story that's there on the front page of Economic Times. India looks to identify post-box entities in FTA nations. Shell companies used to relabel goods and route them as FTA exports. Revenue agencies to keep a check, and industry has already been sounded on this particular thing. So India is actually looking to increase the scrutiny of imports from Chinese companies or entities that are located in ASEAN nation as well. This is all as per sources to Economic Times. New Delhi has information about China setting up new entities and acquiring defunct companies in nations such as Vietnam and using these shell enterprises to relabel and export goods to India, exploiting India's free trade agreement with ASEAN. So there you go. Further scrutiny coming in on Chinese goods from nations as well as from ASEAN nations as well. Let's shift focus now to another story that's there on the page 1 of Economic Times, and this is about talking about the income tax relief, and this is, here you go. This is the story that I'm talking about. The story continues more on the page 9 of Economic Times, and this is individuals will be able to claim income tax exemptions for conveyance, travel and other allowances given by employers under the new tax regime that offers lower tax rates. This is all as per CBDT's notification that came in on Saturday. The rules prescribing allowances that are exempted will come into effect from April 1, 2021. So it's a big relief that is coming in for income tax payers, that the individuals will be able to claim income tax exemptions for conveyance, travel and other allowances given by employers under the new regime that offers lower tax rates. So a big boost coming in for the income tax payers. Let's shift focus now to the real estate sector, and real estate companies face a double whammy post-lockdown. Not only did the work come to a halt, but builders will now have to pay higher rate of GST. My colleague Vivek is joining in to give us shed more light on this particular story. Vivek, take us through this particular story. It looks like a big hit coming in for the realtors.
Well, good morning. As far as the real estate space is concerned, it doesn't appear as though most of the headwinds that the sector is facing is going to come to an end near anytime soon. So what is the newest development as per the ET is that they have to pay GST at the rate of 18%. And this is very interesting. They have been insisted that 80% of the construction material should come in from registered dealers. So this is something that, the entire industry has been facing for quite some time. government has been telling them to use and procure construction material mainly from registered dealers. But given the fact that the real estate space is a space that is highly unorganized and a whole host of smaller players exist, it's going to be quite tough for the sector to actually go ahead and adhere to these rules. So now what most of the experts are saying that ET spoke to is that meeting this criterion is most likely going to be very tough. And the other thing that the entire sector is facing is that paying this particular GST may not be viable as there's extremely high inventory and liquidation of inventory isn't actually happening at the pace at which most of the real estate companies are hoping. So overall, again, a setback as far as the entire real estate space is concerned.
All right, let's shift focus now to another story that's there on the front page of Economic Times. It's the top story that's there on the Economic Times this morning. And there you go, India's allies pitching in with weapons and ammo. That is the story that's there on the Economic Times. I will speak more on the story right from the paper for you. On the way, additional Rafale jets, Israeli air defense system, US ammo and Russian equipment worth $1 billion. So as Indian troops remain dug in at Ladakh, in the prolonged standoff with China, allies are pitching in with commitments to deliver urgently needed ammunition as well as weapons for the armed forces. France has promised to deliver additional Rafale jets next month, and in-service Israeli's air defense system is expected soon as well. Precision artillery rounds will be sent by the United States, and Russia will make early deliveries of ammunition and weapons worth $1 billion. So this is the big story that is there on the Economic Times front pages. France is committed to sending that additional Rafale jets next month. Jets to be fully combat ready will be escorted by French Air Force tankers. Russia committed to supply ammunition, anti-tank missiles, man-portable air defense system. And US and Israel also is going to send in their weapons and ammunition much ahead of, urgently rather, to India. So this is the top story that's there on the Economic Times front page for you. Now let's shift focus to state-specific news in fighting COVID-19 crisis, and this time around I'm talking about Maharashtra. There's a story on page 3 of Economic Times, and this is the story that I'm talking about, that Mumbai may see tighter norms also. Mumbai may see tighter curbs as Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav has said that the lockdown will stay. Maharashtra CM to meet officials today to discuss the steps to combat the pandemic. Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray, while addressing the state on Sunday, categorically ruled out of the lifting of the lockdown after June 30th. Government officials said the cities like Mumbai may further need to tighten lockdown measures given the spike in the COVID-19 cases. Mumbai police on Sunday also said that people can leave their homes only to buy essential services, visit the markets, barber shops and salons, all of which should be within 2-kilometer radius from the person's residence. People would be allowed to travel beyond 2 kilometers only to attend office and medical emergency. Mumbai police also said that they would impound vehicles of people who flout this particular rule. So this is a very big story that's coming in, that Mumbai may see tightened curbs as Maharashtra Chief Minister and officials are meeting in today. But we need to wait and watch and see what comes out of that particular meeting. But yes, it is a given that the Mumbai police has also tightened their rules, and due to the rise in the COVID-19 cases that the city and the state is actually witnessing. All right, now let me shift focus to the top 5 headlines that we have on the Times of India. But before I get on to that, here's a big voice, that is AM Naik of L&T, who's spoken to Economic Times, and I'll read out a quote from what he had to say. He's saying that the anti-China sentiment can be a game changer in terms of fast-tracking and giving new impetus to government initiatives like Make in India. He's saying Indian companies and consumers may face higher costs in the short term. The government support, with government support, Indian manufacturing can quickly achieve economies of scale. All right, now let me shift focus and let me talk about the top 5 headlines that's there on the Times of India for you this morning. And first up, like I mentioned just now, Maharashtra Chief Minister has said that they won't lift the lockdown on July 1st. Moving on, India, third nation to report 20,000 cases in a single day. United States virus cases breach record for 5th straight a day. You have Google, Apple pitch contact tracing enabling API. And RBI board debates 90-day NPA cap.